Frank Turek says he knows there's an afterlife. But how does he know? Well, let's find out as he goes through rational thought completely ass backwards. What else is new? I think by now we all know that Frank Turek is an idiot. He claims to know things that he absolutely does not know, he believes things for no good reason, and he makes a living standing up preaching to the terminally gullible. In other words, he's a religious apologist. But what happens when someone asks him about the afterlife? Does he have a good response? Or does he pull a typical Turek and make a complete fool of himself once again? Let's find out.
My name's Neil.
Hey, Neil. Yes, sir.
In talking with people, I've come to realize that many people, especially young people, don't believe that there's any existence after death.
Mm-hmm.
So if they don't believe that, why should they believe in God or creation or any of this?
Good question. And of course, Frank is going to rationalize why he thinks it's all true. But before we get to that, let's talk about the question itself. There is absolutely no evidence of any kind that there's any kind of afterlife, that after you die, you live on in any way at all. It's all wishful thinking. And I get it. People don't want to die. People are afraid of death. That doesn't stop people from actually dying. What you want isn't necessarily what you get. It's just unfortunate that so many people are so terrified of ceasing to exist that they will invent entire ideologies out of whole cloth so they can delude themselves into believing that they don't have to die. But guess what? Every single solitary one of them do. All the belief, all the faith, all the wishful thinking in the world doesn't stop it. It's time people grew up and just dealt with reality.
Well, I think they have it backwards. I don't believe in existence after death and then work my way to God. I start with creation, well, truth, then God, creation, design, morality, and then see if the evidence surrounding Jesus really is good. And if Jesus says that there is an afterlife because he's been there and he's proven by rising from the dead that what he says is true, then I'm going to believe there is an afterlife based on the authority of Jesus.
None of which is demonstrable at all. And this is why I've completely dismantled all of the garbage in multiple Frank Turek response videos, because every bit of what he said is just laughable nonsense. It doesn't matter which way you approach the question. You're holding an empty bag. There's no evidence for God. There's no evidence for Jesus. There's no evidence for the vast majority of things in the Bible, particularly anything supernatural. There's no reason to think that what's recorded in the Bible accurately represents what Jesus might have said if Jesus existed at all. None of it is independently or demonstrably testable. It's all ridiculous on its face, and only a complete idiot ought to believe it. But that pretty much describes Frank here, doesn't it?
Because I just have a personal policy. If somebody rises from the dead, I just believe whatever the guy says. Okay?
Then why are you not a follower of Osiris, or Adonis, or Tammuz, or Dionysus? Because those and many others supposedly did so. Why aren't you a fan of Lazarus? I mean, after all, he supposedly came back to life in your own Bible. The fact is, he doesn't just automatically believe what anyone who died and came back to life says. He only does so with religions that happen to be popular in the region he was born in and that he personally emotionally agrees with. Frank Turek is full of shit. What else is new?
So I don't work backwards. I'm trying to work forwards from God, Jesus, and then whatever Jesus says about the afterlife.
Except you haven't established any of that to be true. I'd like you to do that. I'd like all theists to be able to do that, or at least give it their best shot. And the problem is, none of you do. You assume that you have. You assert that you have. You don't actually do it. If you walked up to Frank Turek and you asked him to prove God, he couldn't do it. He wouldn't even try. He'd throw out a bunch of ad hoc rationalizations and easily disprovable claims for why he thinks God is real. But that's not what I asked. I said, prove God is real. Prove God to the same degree that we can prove that the sun rises in the morning. He can't do that. He can't do any of it. And after failing with God, he'll fail with Jesus and miracles and every single thing having to do with his religious beliefs. Because this isn't about proof, it's about faith. It's about wanting something to be true so strongly that you just assume for no good reason that it is. And for some reason he's proud of that. Don't ask me why.
Thank you.
All right, good question.
Well, it would have been a good question if you had anything resembling a worthwhile answer. But Frank doesn't, does he? None of these Q&A videos that I examine have Frank doing anything but spinning a line of bullshit from the stage. That's all he can do. It's all any apologist can do. If there's anything that anyone watching this video can take away from it, it's the realization that this is what religious apologetics is. It doesn't matter what religion you're talking about either. Watching Muslim apologists, it's the same damn thing. It's some idiot up on stage waving their arms around saying, I'm right, that's why I believe it, and you should too. Except none of them ever manage to prove that they're right. Somewhere between the, I wonder if this is correct, and the, I'm absolutely right stage, they're missing a gigantic step where they prove any of it is reasonable or rational to believe in the first place. Because that doesn't matter to the hyper-emotional, anti-intellectual dunces that buy into religion. It doesn't make the slightest bit of difference. And Frank here is only too happy to prove it. But he's hardly the only culprit. It's why he's not out there presenting evidence to the non-believers. Because he has nothing to present. It's the same reason that the snake oil salesmen and food supplement people aren't out getting clinical trials on their products. They know they can't prove a damn thing. Yet that doesn't matter to them or to their followers. Ask yourself why. What is wrong with these people? Because there's absolutely something wrong with their brains. And that thing is religion.